Okay. Share. Okay. Let's go ahead and kick off the call. This is Josh Bottom. Welcome to the Kubeflow community call for June 29th. Please note that this call is at a special time. And the reason why we have the special time is that we have this first item on the agenda, which is the working groups update. And really the idea here is to early in the planning cycle of Kubeflow 1.4 is to get an update from the working groups. And we had these updates from Kubeflow serving and pipelines last meeting, and there's a recording of that. We'll get that into the notes here. But today we're very lucky to have updates from the notebooks working group, the manifests working group, AutoML, CATIB, and the training working groups. And so we'd like to kick those off and have those folks provide their updates. And then also see if there's users or contributors that want to join into these efforts. So as a start, I think I had mentioned, since Andre was the first to join in, that maybe he could kick this off. Andre, are you about ready to do an update on the, is it AutoML or are you calling CATIB?
Josh,
yeah.
Can I go first? I might have to disconnect after some time.
Oh, sure. Yes, please. If you have a time constraint, go ahead.
Yeah.
Here,
sure.
Let me stop sharing and you take over.
Sure.
Okay, Johnny, so do you want to introduce yourself too, please?
Sure. Yeah, so I'm Jonu. I'm not sure whether people, the old-timers will definitely know me. So I've been in the community for last 2-3 years. So we've been leading the training and AutoML from the inception onwards. So happy to provide operator updates and what we are actually planning for Kubeflow 1.4. Sure. 1 second. Right. Yeah, Justin is on the call. Okay, fine. So one of the major effort that we are actually planning in this release is about having one common controller. Because the major problem that we have is we have lots of training operators right now, TF operator, PyTorch operator, XGBoost, MPI, and more operators are coming in. So right now, the maintenance, release, CI/CD infra, everything is getting very, very tough now to manage all operators, and most of them actually have common code. So in 2019, we when more operators were coming in, we thought it is the right time to have a structure where we have some common code, and then we try to abstract the top layer into individual repositories. So we have a common repository right now, so that way our architecture is composable. But still, the bigger problem right now is the training operators lie in different repositories, so which actually adds extra effort in managing all of them. So here, one major effort would be to try to combine all these operators in one controller manager. So there are many issues raised with respect to that. So there are a couple of tasks remaining to have that. So that is one major task that we are actually planning to have, to get into one single repository. Justin has created a issue tracking what are the changes required for that. The other one is to say, this is one common ask from users, where users have to say, a data scientist have ML code, right? Like they don't want to worry about building container images before doing the actual training. So what is a better way or the better interface provided to the data scientists, so that like they can submit jobs and they don't need to worry anything about building and managing it. So like ideal experience would be like they do check in GitHub and automatically the pipeline should be triggered. So we are thinking like what is the best way to handle that kind of situation. The other one is providing like a distribute a persistent volume scratch space for training pods when the distributed training is happening. So there is a proposal which was raised to handle that, how we can efficiently provide that. So that's something that again we are thinking to design and get it in. So with respect to the operator enhancements, so right now in pipeline, each component has separate launcher, a separate launcher. So again, the problem would be in maintaining them, providing updates, release, etc. Right. So here we are trying to see whether we can have a generic launcher for all training operators. So that way, the maintenance and managing it would be like much more easier when compared to the current state. So there is a separate proposal for MBA operator for basically a V2 version to provide a better scalable architecture. That's also a PR in progress, and probably a demo would be happening very soon. So with respect to the earlier common implementation, currently all individual operators have their own CI/CD infra. Some are using GitHub Actions, some are actually using the AWS infra. So when we want to combine all operators into a single repository, we would definitely need to improve and bring a common CI/CD infra to handle that. So this definitely this is a prerequisite to get all operators combined into a single one. Yeah, and as I said earlier, like more operators are coming in, so which is very exciting. So the more operators basically mean like our common code, common repository is basically tested very well, so which is good. So we are trying to see that like how we can get even the newer operators into that common repository pool, so that way like in a way like all the operators would be tested, and then even we'll have a common CI/CD infra. So you can take a look at the community proposals for that. So we are trying to get the initial operator in this release. Thank you. So if you have any questions, feel free to Slack. Channel is WG Training, and Josh and Andrew will talk about it. So we are actually planning for a training and AutoML working group summit. So we have received some proposals, and then we are evaluating right now, and then we'll be soon providing much more details regarding that. Thank you. Any questions? Kimanos, are you talking? Are you talking like we can't hear you? Sorry.
Oh yeah, I had my mic mute. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thanks for the presentation. Just one question that really intrigued me, because we're discussing the same concept in notebooks about having common code. So could you give at least a high overview of what benefits do you think having a common code for the operators is going to bring us? And for example, how will this be the case for the new paddle operator that that wants to be added?
Right. So if you currently see say TF operator, XGBoost, PyTorch operator, they all work in a very similar distributed fashion. So I would say that 90% of the code which the operators use for them, they are actually shared between that. So while MPI operator works in a very different manner, but like as you said, say for example, if we want to get a fix in right now, currently like 1 week ago, we actually had a fix, and then people have to port it to all individual repositories to actually have it. So we are trying to see, so bringing in a common repository basically gives that flexibility for us, right? Like a single fix can get all the operators fixed, right? Like, so that way it is easy to maintain. And CI/CD, let it be CI/CD infra, whatever it is, right? We will try to get like a coherent build release than like we might miss some or other fixes in some repositories, some operators. And so I think that is the biggest advantage that we are going to have.
Makes sense. So there will be both common code that all of the controllers can utilize, and you can also test when this common code changes. You can also test all of the operators at once.
Correct.
Very
Correct.
nice.
Yeah. Right. So we have the current common repository which is available, and partially we are doing that because finally we are getting the common repository is a dependency for different operators, which happens now. But again, there are some things which are still remaining in the operators, which we could, if all of them stay together, we could have gotten like a single code piece. So when we combine all these operators into a single repository, we would definitely can have much more flexible and much more common code getting in. Yeah.
Okay, this is fantastic. Any risk to your schedule or anything that you feel uncomfortable? When's our close date on Kimonos on development? Is it the end of August? Is that right?
Yeah, about mid-August, 17th, something like that.
August 17th. Go ahead.
Yeah, like to be honest, this is like much more. So ideally, if we get everything in properly, we should not be changing any of the structure as such. Basically, like since the TF operator depends on the common repository, if we merge all the code in, ideally there should not be any surprises. But this is much more involved changes. So we will try to. We are trying to see what is the best way to do that without affecting any stability or the current way of doing that. So we will, in the initial, at least like in the initial phase, we'll try to minimize all the risk and get things in without changing any like major architecture of the code architecture. So that's what like we are planning to.
Then one last question. Sorry if I'm talking too much. Will this also then require a specific new repo for having all the operators there, or will you just use the common repo?
Right. So we had a very similar discussion before. So we were initially thinking we will have an all-in-one repository, but since, say, for example, we have TF operator repository, right? Like ideally, we could actually get in there and then put, since we have lots of repositories already available, we could actually use one popular repository and then try to merge all the common code in. So that is like one option, or we could even have like a separate repository. So we haven't actually gotten there. Instead of getting in again new repository and getting CI/CD infra in, I think it would be better to go with the existing one and then work on top of it.
Hi, George, I have a question. My name is Dan. I work at CERN and we have our Kubeflow instance. The question is for the idea of not building Docker images. That sounds like a great idea and something that our users would love. So I have a question. Did you already prototype something? Do you already have a working solution or?
Right. So right now, like not in the operator space, but again, people do that as a separate step, like pre-processing step outside this one, right? So we don't have a prototype yet, or maybe something that we could discuss, like in our training working group. We have, please feel free to join and then give more options. But again, like what we are thinking is like probably like a pre-processing step and the post-processing step in the training operators, right? KS serving actually has something very similar. So we could actually have that, and then that way we could have any custom logic added to the training step.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Thank you.
Great update, Janu, and thank you and all the contributors there, Joshing and Andre. Andre, I think it may be time to keep moving, if that's okay, Janu, on to...
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, sure. Let's go forward. By the way, Dejan, I just shared with you our working group. It would be great if we get like some sort of this discussion for the automated container build, because this is the top priority issue.
Yes.
So if you have like time, it would be great if you can join.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, really. Yeah.
Yeah, let me start to share my screen. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Great. Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Andre from AutoML Work and Training Working Group. I will give you an update for KDIP in Kubeflow 1.4. So the first thing that I really want to discuss, this is the new UI, and we made a great progress there. But I think we're pretty confident to actually deliver this UI in the Kubeflow 1.4. So we still need to actually fix some issues and deliver the same functionality as the current UI supports. But at least we can provide you the functionality to be able to deploy this UI and use this in production. So we can just to see what is the problems our users will have and how we can fix it. So definitely in the Kubeflow 1.4, the new UI image will be in your default installation, and you can definitely use it. So the second thing that I really want to discuss about new algorithm support, we're actually planning to integrate a couple of new features there regarding to hyperparameter tuning. And especially in GOP tuna algorithm, which is basically support covariance matrix adaptation evaluation strategy. We're supporting a couple of newer strategies, which include IPOP and BIPOP. You can like read more about it in this issue, and you can read the paper about it. This is like very exciting and produce very good results speaking about hyperparameter tuning. And also, since we're updating the GOP tuna framework, we currently support completely new quasi-random algorithm, which is called Sobol. And you also, if you want to read more about it, you can just go forward to this issue and just read the paper there. And we're still like trying to improve the current algorithms, which is include grid, random search, and other algorithms that we support. And we're trying to make them more production ready and improve the problems that we have there. So speaking about like the Kubernetes support, as like we know currently KDIP supports any number of Kubernetes CRD because we implemented their custom CRD feature, and we really want to implement a couple of famous frameworks in production, especially with Argo workflows, because currently KDIP supports in production Tekton, which is very useful if you want to run your post-processing job and pre-processing job and some kind of complex workflow under your hyperparameter tuning system. And we're also trying to support Argo because in the latest version of Argo, they implemented a couple of features which actually allow us to use metrics collector, and we will try to implement this in the upstream. And in the meantime, we also work with our training working group to support other frameworks like XGBoost operator and MXNet. So currently, we really want to deliver all of the Kubeflow frameworks in KDIP default installation. If you want to read more about it, just follow this issue that I linked here. And speaking about like, the components enhancement, we have really good ideas how we can improve our hyperparameter algorithms. So the first thing, which is very exciting, supporting the push-based metrics. The main problems there is in a couple of production environments, if our users have like tons of and very big clusters, they can't like use our metrics collector injection. And they probably will try to implement their own techniques to be able to collect the metrics from the training containers. So we're thinking about how we can improve it and how we can implement the push-based metric strategy, which is basically how MLflow is currently doing. And this will be very useful if you don't want to use our injection webhook, but in the same time collects your metrics for your hyperparameter tuning algorithms. And in the meantime, we also want to make the get suggestion call stateless, which improve the stability and improve performance of our algorithms. Because currently our get suggestion, for sometimes you can get like the same results and you can get some problems there. And we're making some work regarding to make sure that users can easily use this API from the different sort of the from their like environment. And in the meantime, we like as a training working group, so we're improving our CI/CD pipelines with migrating to AWS because like we're still in the process of pushing images to the new registries. And we also like working on the documentation side, which is improve installation process, improve like volume information, because we made some great improvements with the manifest, with using some PVCs for volumes. And also we continue updating the documentation side from the KDIP config to make it as simple as possible to deploy KDIP in production. And also, like, I really want to give like a few updates from the community side. So as Jonah said, we will have a summit, and I strongly believe that we will provide the dates today or tomorrow for the community. So the summit will include a lot of great presentations from the community and a lot of improvements that we want to deliver for training and AutoML. And in the meantime, you also can check our meeting notes. As I mentioned earlier, you can check our YouTube recording. So currently we have all of great presentations on YouTube. And you're more than welcome to check our previous recording from training and AutoML. In the meantime, you can join our Slack channel, you can check our doctors list, and really looking for the new contributors. So check our developer guide, check the help wanted labels. And if you have something interesting which can be done in Kubeflow AutoML, you always can submit the proposal for the community. And you can check our roadmap for 2022, which is, sorry, for 2021, which is include a lot of great features. Yeah, so this is all from my side. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer it.
Andre, it seems as though there are features or fixes, improvements there for fit and finish and operational improvements, as well as maybe some that will help users with new algorithms to improve accuracy. If you look at the balance of those two, how much do you think you're investing on improving the operations or the general functionality versus the actual improving accuracy through new deliveries, like new options that you went over in the beginning? Any guesstimate there, or any idea of how you've split that up?
Yeah, I think our first priority to make sure that the components are stable, because we really want to make the KDIP components stable as other Kubeflow components, like I think notebooks and pipelines, and because they're actually in the V1 version and we're still like in the beta version. So our high priority to at least like deliver the hyperparameter tuning system, all of the problems that we have right now and all of the things that can be improved in the first priority way. And then we can think about how, because algorithms is like independent story, right? Implementing how we can like improve your accuracy results or any other aspects regarding to AutoML. So yeah, first of all, just looking for the customer feedback to see what is the current problems. For example, like the thing that I discussed about like push-based metrics, we just received the feedback that for some cases, our users cannot use injection of metrics collector because they have like thousands of nodes and hundreds of thousands of pods. And this is kind of decrease the performance of their production environment by using this injection mechanism, which we currently follow with metrics collector. So this is kind of steps that we prioritize currently as a community.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Perfect. And so you spurred another question. I'm sorry if I'm monopolizing, but
sure.
You talked about being in beta. Our process is then to go to stable. Is there a roadmap for a stable version of KTIB?
Yeah, I think like we definitely for the 1.4 we will finalize the steps that we need to deliver before the production ready environment, before like V1 version. It's like already, because I know like some customers are already using this in production, but we really want to deliver like the V1 version of at least hyperparameter tuning system. So I cannot like give you the date right now, but I think like we can finalize it after like 1.4, because the API is kind of stable right now, but we still need to see like what is the trade-offs in the components, in the component part, right?
Makes sense. Do you need any, I know you're having the summit, but one last call, do you need anything from end users to provide you feedback so you can improve on that process and get that done? Is there anything high priority that would help you?
I think like, as I said before, so really want to hear why the users cannot use KDIP in production. And as I said, like Summit will help us because we will have like a direct interaction with the customers. But in the meantime, if any users have like feedback and want to share it with us, we're like more than welcome to to get it. Yeah, because like speaking with the customers, we always know how we can improve our components there. Yeah, so any feedback that's go ahead.
Just to add one more thing. So talking about like what Josh was asking, the current KDIP follows a very customizable architecture. So which means like new algorithms or new features can be added without changing the base image, KDIP image, right? So that way, the real focus is to make sure that there are no P0 issues. And if there is something blocking for a particular environment, I think that's something that we are planning to solve immediately, and then make sure that like they can actually use that in any environment that suits to.
Perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Thank you very much, Andre.
Thank you for the feedback.
So we had a couple other working groups, potentially. Kimonis, would you like to provide an update, or is Giannis on?
Giannis, would you like to go first, or should I?
I have no problem. Kimona, do you want to go first?
Okay, I'll go first.
Should I go first?
Wait, I'll go. Just give me a second to add a link to my slides as well.
I can go first.
It's okay. I can go. Actually, let me add them to the notes as well. Training did should be nice. There we go. Oops. Okay, so share my screen. Give me a sec. So you can see my screen, right?
Yes.
All right. Also, apologies. I'm in the countryside right now, so excuse any roosters you might hear. So let's get to it. For the notebooks working group, first of all, we have a tracking issue where you can always keep an eye on to see new things that we might discuss. In this presentation, I've mostly keep track of issues that we discussed in this tracking issue. So I'm going to talk mostly about this, but there are also some newest developments for which I'm going to give a heads up, and we're going to constantly be keeping you in touch as well on if we're going to include newer things in 1.4, etc. So for 1.4, we're mostly going to focus on some stability fixes, and the most important one is we want to start having end-to-end tests. And this is actually a little bit more involved because it will need, obviously, we will be extending our CI/CD on the AWS infra with Argo workflows to run some end-to-end tests. But this discussion is going to raise some interesting points, like for end-to-end tests, we might want to launch a new cluster just to run the end-to-end tests and ensure that a component is working as expected. For example, a controller or a web app. So the first point to discuss and what we're looking into is how do we actually want to handle the cluster creation? Should we go down the road of KF serving and create a distinct new cluster within each test? This has the pros that we have a specific and full-fledged cluster to use, but of course it has the downsides that it might take too long, like even 20 minutes for a cluster to start, which can make the test really slow. Or should we investigate about using a more lightweight approach like K3D to have a Kubernetes cluster inside a container that will be running in our workflow? Of course, there are other aspects for end-to-end testing, like the common code for applying necessary manifests, since even if we have the cluster, we'll need to apply some YAMLs, wait for some deployments to get up, and we're going to need to do this for a lot of components. So this will need to be in a common code. And of course, I think it will be inevitable, and we will need to craft our own images that will be actually running the test suites, whether this is a Golang executable that needs to be built or some JavaScript framework, etc. We have a tracking issue and a first pull request that adds some local end-to-end tests for our web apps. So we're very positive and making progress there. The next thing for our stability is we want to upgrade our UI frameworks to the latest version. We're using Angular, and right now we are at Angular version 8, which is a 1.5 to 2 years old. And we're already reviewing the PR to upgrade this to the latest and greatest version. Although this will need some, we will take it a little bit slower because right now our common code is being used from other web apps as well, like the new Katib UI and the models web app for KF serving. So once we do this change, we will extend the end-to-end test effort at least to run them locally for the others repos as well. So we can also get the other applications up to speed. So every application stays up to date. We're really positive that this effort might even be closed within the week. So we're really excited to have this in. Now, for the next, to get a little bit more high level, we're actually, this comes to the previous discussion about the common code. Right now, we're discussing about designing a more generic viewer CRD. This brought into light because we were thinking about implementing a PVC viewer that would be attached to a volume to show you its contents. And at the same time, we realized that our story for TensorBoard, our TensorBoard controller, is lacking some features, like you cannot specify the image right now, or limits and resources. But we realized that we've done the same thing for notebooks. So this gets us thinking of what is the actual the common use cases that we could have a controller to take care of all of these and encapsulate all of our knowledge for launching notebooks and generalize it into having more broad web IDEs like TensorBoard, RStudio, VS Code notebooks, or any visualization app. And the pipelines people are also really happy to help with this because they're also using TensorBoard. So we have a common effort there to create this viewer CRD. We already have a first iteration to define a common API for configuring things like the ingress, how to expose it outside the cluster, what HTTP headers to set, path rewriting, the replicas, because someone might want to actually scale down their editor to 0, for example, a notebook, and scale it back up. And of course, we try to learn from our mistakes from TensorBoard and try to make sure that we expose all of the aspects of the underlying pods. So while we help with some configuration, we also give complete freedom to users to do what they want with their editors. This is a really exciting feature that we are working for 1.4. I don't think this is going to make it in time for 1.4, but the more we discuss and bring feedback there, the more it will help us to have the general idea figured out. So if you have any comments about it, please feel free to add a comment in the issue I've linked. Now, the next part we're actually discussing is we want to improve our storage API when we're launching notebooks. And for this one, we're specifically targeting the web app we have for launching notebooks. And the limitation right now is the fact that this web app currently only allows you to either launch a notebook and mount an existing PVC to it, or create a new PVC and mount it. But this limits us because it does not allow users to modify the other types of volumes that could be used in the pod spec. For example, users cannot use right now an NFS volume, which is a really common scenario for having a read-write many volume or a CSI volume. And also at the same time, while the UI currently allows users to create a new PVC, it only allows them to edit a small section of fields like the size, the access modes, and it does not actually allow them to configure more advanced things in the PVC. For example, right now they cannot create a new PVC from a snapshot source. So with these things in mind, we're really actively working on changing and improving the API of the web app in order to allow users to fully be able to mount any existing volume to their notebooks, not just PVCs, NFS, and everything that the Kubernetes spec already allows, and as well as to allow users to fully configure the PVC that will get created. And the good thing with these solutions, for those that are up to date with 1.3, is that we're actually going to use these changes to the volumes web app as well. So the way users will be able to define their PVC to be used in a notebook, they will have the same user experience to create a new PVC and define everything they want with the volumes web app itself. And this will actually start getting the discussion more onto how can we mix those two components together. So we're also really excited about this effort. And two things remaining that I'd like to talk about. And the next one is we want to improve our story for automatic scale down. Right now we have an implementation that is not it's a little bit broken for 1.3.1. We'll have it fixed for 1.4, but we want to have it fully fleshed out for 1.4 forwards, and which is we want users to be able to define if they want a notebook to be scaled down to 0. And this means that if a notebook is not being used, then the actual deployment will reduce its replicas to 0. Now, this mechanism raises a lot of questions that we want to ensure that we've brought to the surface and discussed. And details like this include how could the controller fetch the metrics and identify that the notebook is actually idle or not? And how could this work with Jupyter, RStudio, and VS Code? And the next thing is we really want to take into consideration and allow users to configure different thresholds for different notebooks. Because, for example, GPU notebooks might need to be stopped sooner than CPU notebooks because they're more cost effective. They're more costly, excuse me. And of course, we need to discuss the API changes on how can we allow users to specify these things in a notebook CR. And that's a small comment to Andre's point earlier about V1, the beta 1 and alpha. I think it's pretty okay for a component to be in beta because the fact that we kind of urged a little bit to go to version 1 limits us right now into how we could add this API to notebooks. Of course, we can use annotations and other mechanisms, but I think that taking the time for a component to actually mature as it should is a very good thing to keep in mind. So this is the story for scale up and down for notebooks. And last but not least, we are actually want to investigate some performance issues that we've seen with the web apps. And specifically, users have reported that once they have a lot of resources like pod defaults or notebooks, then the web apps might take even seconds to respond. There are a lot of directions that we will evaluate right now that I believe will have fruitful results, like what is a threading model that we currently use in our web apps. We could definitely have better performance by using user space threads to handle more requests more efficiently. And another idea will be to actually chunk the responses the backends get from the Kubernetes server. So they don't get 10,000 objects at once, but they just ask for smaller and smaller parts to construct the final object, which will result in better memory utilization. So these are all the points I want to discuss up to now. Although there are other nice features that users have added, like better support for the central dashboard and MLflow, and by allowing users to specifically configure the namespaces that will be used in the links from the central dashboard, or there are some security concerns that also Jofnu raised about the using and having someone who is just a viewer in the namespace to be able to access a notebook and have more permissions by utilizing the notebook service account. These are all things that we're discussing for 1.4, and we will keep you updated to what gets in for 1.4. So that's it from our part. Looking forward if you have any questions. Let me actually stop sharing.
That's a great roadmap, Kimonis. Definitely appreciate all the work and the foresight. Is there anything that your working group needs from the user community?
Some technical feedback on some of the aspects, like the performance issues. We want to ask users if they've also faced performance issues, so we can gather some numbers, like what's their environment that is set up to help us pin down the problems more, or their use cases about launching editors, so we can take this into considerations when generalizing writing our generalized solution. But we're mostly good.
Yeah, I have a quick question, Kimonis. So speaking about like notebook, I know that's, so we spoke a lot about automated container build. Any ideas how we can make it in Kubeflow in upstream? Because I know like some other projects support it, but maybe we can have some sort of the integration between automated container build and notebooks. Or you think it is up to working group decision and their SDKs?
How do you mean automatic container building?
I mean, like, for example, because a lot of Kubeflow users are using notebooks, right? And a lot of them are using like the working groups SDK, like Kubeflow pipelines or training operators. I don't know, is it possible to make some improvements on the notebook side to simplify the process of using this SDK? Like, I don't know, maybe something what Kale is doing right now, or any other things that, yeah, how we can improve the automation deployment from the notebooks.
To make it easier for users from notebooks to actually be able to wrap all the other Kubeflow components and use them?
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
That's a very interesting point. We didn't have a distinct story about it up to now, but we can definitely start thinking about it. Yeah, such a use case would make sense because it unifies Kubeflow and the rest of the components. And notebooks could be a good place for that, since a lot of users spend a lot of time on it. Yeah, this is a very good, interesting data point.
Yeah, this is exactly what I was thinking about. So the question is like, how customers are actually using the notebooks right now, and do they actually want to use other Kubeflow components from the notebooks? Yeah, this is a big question.
That's very interesting. I would say that even a user survey would help here to get more user feedback on how are they using notebooks, so they can help us define better how to better support it.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe how they just perform the Kubeflow components from the notebooks.
Yeah, I definitely think that getting user input's important. I know the mini summits coming up for CATIB, maybe there's some mini summit Kimonis that we think about sometime in the future for the notebook working group to get some feedback, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I want to first sort some things out, like the testing, so we can have more development speed. And then this is exactly the next thing that we're actually thinking about.
Andre leads the way. Thank you, Andre, for.
Thank you.
Giannis, we're leaving you at 10 minutes, buddy.
That's okay. I'll manage. Let me share my screen. Here it is. Okay, let's do this. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Hi everyone, I'm Yanis. I'm a tech lead for the Manifest Working Group. I have prepared a small roadmap presentation with Kimonas to talk a bit about the next items we are planning for the Manifest Working Group. So, as you know, in the Manifest Working Group, we are gathering files, a manifest from all other Kubeflow repositories and common services to form an app catalog. And one of the first changes we want to make is to move the distribution manifests outside the Kubeflow manifest repo from 1.4 and onwards, as per the existing Kubeflow distribution proposal that we have. We're doing this for a lot of reasons, but mainly it completely decouples the release process of upstream Kubeflow and distributions, which allows more flexibility on each side. So Kubeflow manifest is free to release without waiting on distributions, but also distributions can follow their own schedule without being tied to Kubeflow manifests, and also have their independent issue tracking and more control of their own. And we have given a deadline of August 14th for this. And it will be one of the big changes in 1.4. Then we want to enable Kubeflow to be compatible with customized v4 and later. We have an issue for this, it's 1797. We have already opened an issue and discussed with upstream customized what we can do. And the proposed solution is tracked in issue 3913 in upstream customized, where we have agreed to implement a new feature in order to accommodate Kubeflow's use case and other people with the same problem. Third, right now we are syncing files, as I said, from multiple repos, and we're doing this by hand. We're hoping to automate this process and make it more streamlined in 1.4. And finally, we'd like to double in automated testing a bit, both in terms of static validations of YAML manifests, as well as E2E tests, which deploy all of Kubeflow's components and common services, and then perform some validations on the deployed result. And that's all for the manifest working group. I think that I made it in 10 minutes. Does anyone have any questions?
Giannis, the refactoring of the manifest in 1.3 was a major delivery. And I think from what I've heard, the installation has improved a lot, right? And so these changes that you're making now incrementally improve, it kind of tie down some of the loose edges from 1.3. Is there more that I'm missing there, or is that primarily where we're at? Is we're just kind of moving it even an incremental improvement from 1.3?
Right. You put it in a very good way, Josh. Essentially, right now we are wrapping up all of the small loose ends that we have from 1.3. But the bulk of the work was done in the previous release.
Great. Well, that has been a topic of concern from users, is improving installation. I think at least from what I have seen, unless we have folks that on the phone that have gone through the installation feel differently, I think we have improved the installation process dramatically. And obviously we want to continue to make that a installation a non-issue. Always going to be, I think, complex because there are so many pieces of the stack, but again, ask the users for any comments before we move on. All right, if there's no other comments, I was wondering maybe we could look at the agenda and just get a little bit of update on 1.3.1 and 1.4. Giannis, Kimonis, is there anything that you want to give on 1.3.1 and 1.4? I know we had an RC cut, but I think there were some other comments. Here, let me see. Here on 1.3, is there anything on the notes that you want to improve or talk about, point out, dates?
I can go over the schedule for 1.3.
Okay.
1.1. I'm repeating again for everybody, in case you haven't seen the announcement in the mailing list. We have released the first release, we have got the first release candidate for 1.3.1. It's called 1.3.1 RC0. And this means that right now we're testing this RC in the manifest working group, and we'll be doing so for this week. So the deadline for this is July 5th. And once we conclude this process and fix any bugs that come up, then we'll give the instructions to distributions and tell them to start integrating. And they will have 3 weeks to do so, after which we will finally cut the release 1.3.1 on July 27th. So this is the current plan. These are the current dates. You can find them in the meeting notes. You will also find them regularly in the emails that we send, the updates for 1.3.1. And please also feel free to follow the tracking issue that we have in Kubeflow manifest for the 1.3.1 release.
Yeah, maybe we should put that into the notes here, is to put that tracking issue.
No worries, leave it to me. I will paste it there.
Yeah, is there also a tracking issue for the documentation, or is there a documentation update planned as well? Is Rui on the phone? I guess we'll check back on that, but I assume there'll be some docs that are finished up as well, right, Giannis?
Right, and I think Rui is the best person to follow for that.
Just a quick question to Yanis. Can I have it? Yeah. So I know that currently in the manifest, in the master, we have the latest version which Kubeflow supports, right? So in the master currently, for each component, Kubeflow component, we have the version which is like 1.3.1, right? Sorry, 1.3.1. It is correct, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, do we actually want to provide functionality for the user to deploy the latest version of all components, or the idea of the Kubeflow as the whole infrastructure should be always point to the latest release?
Oh, so if I understand correctly, you're saying that the default branch should be 1.3 and not master in the
exactly.
Yes. The repo.
Yes, because I can give you the use case. For example, we have a customer who wants to deploy the latest version of the Kubeflow, but this version has not been officially released yet. And the problem is that the customers have to manually go to the repository and take the latest version. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. We only provide support for released versions. We don't provide support for master branches.
Hey, I have to
But-
apologize. This is Josh. I have an 11 o'clock and I do need to jump because it is my bridge. Hopefully this bridge stays up when I leave, but I appreciate everybody's time. Thanks.
I guess we're there. Okay, let's see.
Yeah, I think
Okay,
meeting
say
codes
those.
should be changed.
Okay, so I'm not sure I understood. So there are two things, right? First, you said if it makes sense to make 1.3, the 1.3 branch, the default branch that appears when you open the rep on GitHub, right? So
Yes.
that's the first thing. And I'm not sure, did you ask for a second thing to keep a master branch with the latest version of each component or not?
So this is exactly what I'm asking. So currently the user, when they jump to the master, they see the 1.1.3.1, which is actually pointing to the latest version of Kubeflow.
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking, like, what is the, like, how many customers actually wants to see the latest version on the master branch? And is it like, does it make sense for our users to see the latest version of the images?
It's interesting. I think it's an interesting use case. And perhaps it would also make sense to keep it, if we also had some kind of testing, then we could continuously sync things there and test them to see that nothing has broken. It will give us a more clear path from one upgrade to the next.
Yeah. So it's
But
more about like the testing side, I agree.
But to be honest, nobody has asked for this so far. So
Okay.
but if someone has asked, then they probably have a use case for it. So feel free to open an issue so we can track what the use case is. And if it makes sense, yeah, let's implement it.
Yeah, sure. I think we can discuss it in the manifest meeting again. So because it's related to the manifest, not to the whole community, but it's fine. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay.
I would also need to drop, so since we're overdue either way, I think we can actually wrap this meeting, this call up. What do you think?
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a nice day.
I love seeing these roadmap presentations.
Mm.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye.